Kiran, thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited that we have managed to get an hour or maybe less of your time to go through some Q&A. I want to start off by asking you a little bit about your own personal journey and your experience within education space. Like, what brought you here? What have you done so far?
So I started a long time back in 1982, actually, and my father was involved in education before that. So I kind of followed in his footsteps. We started a girls' school in 1982, and then boys came in later. And
Hmm.
when I joined the education space, I really had no experience about education
Hmm.
other than having been very privileged and fortunate to have gone through some of the best educational institutions right from school to college and a US university.
So, from a consumer point of view,
Yes, so I knew what a great education looked like,
right?
and at all levels. So when I joined the entire project of starting a school, I suggested that we approach it from a very different angle. And that's what we did right from the beginning. We did not pay attention to the commercial aspect because that was never our intent.
Hmm.
So as a non-profit, we were able to do a number of different things, and most importantly, when you are in the education space, you should be able to say no to certain things. When
Hmm.
you have commercial interests tied to a lot of the questions, you end up saying yes to a lot of things that you should not.
Right.
So as a non-profit, we were able to be very steadfast, and then we made rapid progress from just 212 girls in 1982 to about 9,000 today.
Wow.
And as we moved through the years, we added boys subsequently, and
Hmm.
then we began to add boards, like curriculum.
Yep. Yep.
So initially we were an SSC school,
Hmm.
just a local board. Then we added the ICSE and ISC boards, and then we
Hmm.
added the Cambridge boards, and then we added IB. So it
Nice.
was a gradual progression from doing what was a local curriculum to doing an international curriculum. And
Right.
throughout that journey, we made sure that our staff were receiving the type of training that they needed. And I have to say, there were schools out there,
Hmm.
Riverside School in Ahmedabad, Hebron in Ooty,
Hmm.
which were ever ready to extend help to us.
Hmm.
In those days, you know, offering help was considered to be very normal. There were no strings attached. And we also received a lot of help from my own school where I studied in Rajkot, called the Rajkumar College, which is a
Hmm.
very public school.
Hmm.
So I was very fortunate. I had a lot of guidance, and then about 5 years into the journey, I went to study back in the US and did a master's in education
Where was this?
at the University of Georgia. So
Hmm.
this kind of opened my eyes. I thought I wanted to find out more about education, but doing a master's just told me how little I knew even after the master's. So it was kind of
Yeah.
a humbling experience. But again, I ran into a lot of great professors who continued to assist me with questions when I came
Hmm.
back to India. And over the years, we've kind of progressed using what we would consider to be best practices in education,
Hmm.
including project-based understanding, and so project-based learning and understanding by design.
Right.
The UBD is something that is very similar to project-based learning,
Hmm.
and then also the IB primary years curriculum is also very similar.
Hmm.
But the one that we really liked was thinking for understanding, which came
Hmm.
out of Harvard Graduate School.
Hmm.
And I believe Howard Gardner was also associated with Project Zero, which was the name of the project in Harvard.
Hmm.
And Kiran Shetty at Riverside and we worked closely on creating that curriculum. Kiran was the brains, and we were kind of executing at a larger scale because her school is very small. So today we are two unique schools that use that particular model, which is
Hmm.
called Thinking for Understanding.
Sounds
And
amazing.
this 2020 has been another accelerator in a very different direction, but
Yes.
perhaps we'll talk about that in your later questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would focus on 2020 because that has been a game changer, as you say. But it's really nice to hear your story, and I think I can see you have sort of strong leadership skills. You are sort of um, sharing examples from other people who've helped other schools, from Kiran, staff, etc. And I think it's really good to meet people who sort of acknowledge all the things, whether it was you said your father led the way initially and then you took on that journey, etc. Like you've got a bigger picture, and I think you fit into that ecosystem. So it's nice to see how it comes together. And I think it takes a lot of courage and vision, like you said, being able to say no to things. And I think that's a sign of a leader to say, okay, this is what we're doing, and we're a not for profit. We're going to not mix um, our values here. So
Right.
very nice. Thank you. Um, I think what now I do want to focus on 2020. I think it's kind of thrown a curved ball at us. So I think what I really want to focus on is, can you throw some light on the general preparedness of the schools in India to handle this change that we've sort of been imposed on us? And because you've been in education for a long time, you connected to so many other schools. You've probably been talking to parents and teachers. So I'd love to get your insights into what has worked well and what hasn't worked well, not just from your school, but in general. Like what are the lessons?
So I think schools were totally unprepared,
Hmm.
and so were teachers.
Yeah.
We, as a school, we had a unique situation in the
Hmm.
sense that we were anticipating. I've been a big, well, you can consider that as an admirer of something that has been happening for a while in education, Clayton Christensen, and
Yeah.
he started that entire train of thought with his book Disrupting Class. And so I've been kind of following everything that they've been doing and researching and identifying as the best practices from here on. So we were kind of ahead of the curve. We had been using technology for every single student practically in the institution,
Hmm.
and we also had a digital curriculum.
Hmm.
So for us, the shift was, in fact, rather easy. One day we were in class, and then the next day we were at home, and we were using our digital devices
Hmm.
primarily for asynchronous learning.
Right.
So we had known about synchronous and asynchronous, and
Hmm.
we were also kind of thinking that it would take us about 7 or 8 years, where the virus has currently taken us in 6 months.
Yeah.
We were actually anticipating exactly whatever is happening right now. And we were putting the pieces in place, and I was actually despairing about whether I would still be around to see the changes that needed to happen in education. And I have been accused of praying for this virus, obviously, so that the changes that have occurred. There is obviously a tragic side to the whole
Yeah.
issue. So while we are, delighted with whatever changes are happening in education, there is a darker side, and we hope that these were not the circumstances in which change was
Yeah.
happening.
It's a silver lining that, I mean, it's a horrible thing that has happened to the world, to the education. But I think we at Manga High felt the same thing, that there is a silver lining for technology and for the betterment of the education system, that it has been shaken to the core, and schools and teachers have been forced to adopt something that would have was coming because for good reasons, for on its own merit, but it has been accelerated.
So one of the problems has been, I mean, this is in the US and across the world, is that people have thrown a lot of money in terms of technology at schools. And
Hmm.
by some estimates in the US and elsewhere, it's been in billions of dollars. But the way technology is to be utilized has been a puzzle. A few schools have just begun to kind of figure this one out, and we were luckily one of those institutions institutions that had a handle on how to use technology.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because we created an entire curriculum unit. We had the luxury and privilege of being able to do something that most other schools don't,
Mm-hmm.
which is to have close to 100 people just working on answering the puzzles that education was posing, primarily with regard to using technology, and also how do we create project based learning in the classroom, higher order thinking skills, even as we are stuck with board examinations in India
Mm-hmm.
that tend to focus on the lower order thinking skills. So it's been a challenge that way. But because we were not a commercial school, we were able to ignore that side, where our focus was not on the marks that students achieve in the examinations. It was really the types of attitudes and approaches and skills that they took with them when they graduated from our institutions. So it's been challenging, and at the same time, it's been very satisfying that we have been taking all these risks, and it's now turned out that we were on the right track, and we are at a happy situation right now because of all the risks that we took.
No, I think it sounds promising and sounds good, and I can see how it would be rewarding if you're being mission led and you following what you think are good practices, whether you learned it from Clayton Christensen's academy or, like you mentioned, design based understanding. So you're doing a lot of things which may be seen as ahead of the time and not necessarily what is required to get grades. You're sort of working on a more holistic education, what on things that you think are right for a longer term and changing attitudes.
Something that's been a topic of discussion even at the highest levels in government circles.
Hmm.
But the challenge has been figuring out how to make that happen at scale.
Yeah.
That's where the problem is, that whatever we are doing requires a great teacher in every classroom,
Yeah.
which is kind of an impossible situation to attain, except for the very highest performing schools with the highest amount of budgets.
Yeah.
We are kind of not exactly there, but we've been fortunate to be able to attract talented teachers. And
Yeah.
by and large, we are happy with the educators that we have, and they are able to put into practice whatever our vision has been.
Wow. Did you say you had 100 people on like answering questions about how to use technology, etc.? Is that the
Yes,
number? Wow.
that was the total number of people that we had in our Ahmedabad office, where we were using digital curriculum. And that included programmers, that included people who were working on, the back end, as well as the developers and the core curriculum team. So they were close to 100 people there.
Wow. That's
We had to reduce them at this point in time because of our now restricted budgets.
yeah.
But fortunately, we had completed most of the development of the curriculum, and we are now figuring out, that was 1.0, and we are now trying to figure out 1.5,
Hmm.
where children are home, because what we had developed was a teacher mediated curriculum. Now we are having to rethink that assumption and think in terms of a parent mediated curriculum.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's different.
I understand. Absolutely. So I think it was similar for us at Manga High. We were a very online company. All our infrastructure is cloud based. All our softwares we use are SaaS based. So for us, it was like one day we were at office, and the next day we've been at home, and we're still at home in London. I'm working from my home office. You see this Manga High character on my wall here. So yeah, it's been a bit crazy, but I think companies or schools or institutions that have been more online or digitally savvy and prepared have been less impacted. But one thing that I do see has been impacted is like less social interaction with people now that we're working from home. So the morale can be like it's been a bit tricky to keep the morale high. So what have you been doing to keep the morale of your teaching staff high?
So that was a great question, and it was one of the first things that we began to address when we shifted online. And in fact, before they announced the lockdown, we had announced it internally our school that the lockdown is coming, and we spent 1 week online when we were still allowed to come on campus, right?
Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
it was, we were in preparation for what was to
Yeah.
happen.
And you could
And
see like the lockdown was coming because it had happened in Asia, it happened in Europe. I think India was one of the last countries to get it.
so uh, but just take me back to your question. I think I digress.
No, I was just asking, how did you keep the morale of the teaching staff
Okay.
high?
Right. So one of the things that we immediately did was we said, okay, who are the thinkers that we need to be listening to at this time? And Simon Sinek was an obvious person that we looked at, and he had these very timely videos that
Mm-hmm.
connected to everything that was happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to focus on the issues that were most challenging,
Mm-hmm.
including the morale of your staff.
Mm-hmm.
And so he set out a number of different guidelines and best practices to follow at this time.
Mm-hmm.
He had everybody watch the video. I spoke to every member of our teaching staff on Zoom sessions, discussing the things that Simon had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really quite simple. Like what Simon says, that pick up the phone, don't just text. Pick up the phone, continue to maintain that human dimension to everything that's happening,
Mm-hmm.
even if it is virtually. But be seen, be heard in person as much as you can, and continuously and consistently maintain your communication channels. So
Yeah.
not only with each other, and with parents and students. And we manage our we manage our institutions through self-managing teams, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we break up our entire institution into what you might consider about 50 to 60 schools of 120 to 150 students.
Mm-hmm.
And so they all function as an autonomous unit, and so they are 6 teachers in each self-managing team.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are constantly in touch with each other, with their students,
Mm-hmm.
and with their parents. And then we have an entire team of HR associates who are at the back end supporting all these self-managing teams. And
Got it.
they are constantly in touch, and I'm available 24/7, 365 to anybody that has a problem. And so my numbers with every parent, with every student, with every staff member. And you'd think that I would be inundated with texts and messages, but surprisingly, people only send messages to me when I am the last resort. We
Mm-hmm.
also have a call back center where we have a, like sort of like a call center. We have 6 employees whose only job is to handle communications with all the parents and staff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been useful as well. And then we've been sending out circulars, messages. We've got WhatsApp groups in which every parent has been included. So these communication channels, the technology that's available, and especially WhatsApp and email. So these are the channels that we constantly use. And then, of course, video chat has been a big part of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So WhatsApp video chats, we use Google Meet, we use Hangouts, we use Zoom. Basically, horses for courses, like
Yes.
whatever works in a particular
Yeah.
situation.
Now sounds like you've covered it quite well. Like you were well prepared. You took a week off even before the lockdown was formally announced to make sure like you're doing a dress rehearsal for a week. And I really love your sort of the organizational model that you mentioned and how every unit is working kind of a self-managing in a self-managing way. So it sounds quite innovative how you scaled up things and how you're managing it. So yeah, exciting. Um, can I ask you around? Do you feel like in this process there has been a learning loss or some longer term impact, whether it's socioeconomic, socio like morale and sentiment for the students or their learning? Has there been a longer term impact, and what do you think we're doing about it?
Absolutely. There is going to be a learning loss that we are going to feel a little bit down the line. And there is no way we can claim that everything that's happening in terms of online education or at home education, as we like to call it, and whether it is asynchronous or synchronous,
Hmm.
uh, there is no replacing the effectiveness of face to face instruction.
No.
So, one of the ways in which we are trying to address what we think is going to be quite a significant learning loss is through using platforms like Manga High, where we are thinking that children, when they are enabled, when they are self empowered to take charge of their own learning, then at this time, that can be something that will address the potential learning loss.
Hmm.
But the problem is screen time, a major issue. So we have all these resources like Manga High, and they are wonderful to get students to work on their own, make progress on their own, reinforce, enrich, remediate, and explore new ways of looking at the same mathematical problems that otherwise they would be struggling with. So it's been very liberating from that angle. But the problem of screen time remains because they are at home. And even though we use a lot of asynchronous learning, they are on their devices, and our children all have been given an iPad. So we purchased we leased 6,000 iPads last year. So every
Oh, wow.
single one of our students has an iPad.
Hmm.
And we have an MDM. So we have a mobile device management system
Hmm.
that permits us to control everything they do on those iPads.
Nice.
They can download material that we send them, resources that we send them. So for instance, they are not able to use the iPad for anything other than what we permit them to do. So that was another challenge that schools had and parents had, that if their children have a device which has no controls on it. So we were already armed with the mobile device management on our iPads, even when children were in school. So when they took the iPads home, it was an easy transition for us to continue to manage what was happening with those iPads. So
Yeah.
that was a big, that was one thing that other schools did not have. And of course, parents did not have. And that was a worry for parents, because now their children were being invited by their school to be constantly online. And
Yeah.
parents were not in a position to sit next to their children all the time. So we
Yeah.
have these tools, and we have wonderful resources like Manga High again, but the screen time is going to be a challenge. So we're having to think in terms of, okay, how can we do things offline? So we send every child our textbooks, hard copy printed versions of our textbooks. So they are offline as much as possible, and we are inviting them to use those hard copy textbooks so that they can have time for Manga High and other on screen apps that we would want them to explore and take advantage of. And we are hoping that we can find an optimum balance.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, we do sometimes get students. I mean, it's a tricky balance, right, about screen time, because there is, if they're doing something on Manga High, they're actually learning, but it could be perceived as my child is spending too much time on screen. It's not good for them, and sometimes the parents don't have the visibility whether they're playing Fortnite or they're playing a trigonometry game on Manga High, and I think the boundaries can be a bit blurred. I remember we got a call from a parent in Australia saying Manga High should be like, this website should go down every day at 8 or 9 p.m. so children can't access it after that, because they found their son had been playing Manga High at 3 in the morning on his iPad. And I'm like, where does the ownership or responsibility or accountability lie? Is it with the
Yeah,
child, with the parent, with Manga High, with the school? Because I think we are all responsible for that, and I'm not advocating
exactly.
for it, but I don't think like taking down sites is a good solution. But educating the child about screen time usage, educating the parent about screen time usage. I mean, one of the simplest things would be parents take away the iPad from the child after 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whenever they want to impose a curfew in their house for no screen time after 9 p.m. Like, I have friends in London who sort of give their children like X amount of allocated screen time a day. Like you said, like MDMs, they have their own way to sort of limit screen times on video games and stuff. And I often see the children negotiating with their parents, can I please have another half an hour? But yeah, it's a real concern. I think on this point of Manga High, I do want to say congratulations to you and all your students. I'm not sure if you've been told by your team, but during the month of April and May, your students topped the leaderboard on Manga High, and that's not just in India; they topped it globally. And this is like 6,000 other schools, and we're talking about lots of schools in US, UK, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, everywhere, including Brazil. And Galaxy School was right at the top of the leaderboard. I believe my team may have been in touch with your team to let them know. So
Right. So
really,
the school that you are talking about was SN Consagra School. So we have two schools,
mhm.
the Galaxy School and SN Consagra School. The school that was primarily involved with Manga High was SN Consagra School.
Yes, yes, you're right. Um, so what differentiates your students from everybody else around the world? Because they seem to be pretty clued in. I think one of the reasons I can see why they would have done so well is like you given iPads to everyone, so access to technology has been good. But what else have you done to increase the adoption of technology amongst students, amongst staff, and also parents?
So I think we've been using MindSpark Mathematics as a math reinforcement and remediation tool for a long time. And our
Hmm.
children have been used to using that for maths learning.
Hmm.
And switching to Manga High was kind of like an adventure because Manga High is very different.
Hmm.
Whereas Mindspark is very basic in terms of its technology by design,
Hmm.
so that you know it's not meant to be edutainment, and we have to give the children the idea
Hmm.
that sometimes math is routine and you got to just stick it out and get that seat time in. With Manga High, they are wildly excited because suddenly they see math in a very different way.
Hmm.
And as you said, they are very used to using a device,
Yeah,
and then and they have freedom to use their device because their parents know that the MDM is in place.
right.
So that allowed parents to, if they saw their child with the iPad, they were not thinking, okay, they're playing Fortnite. We had a few hackers, okay, I mean, like, there are students out there who hack through the MDM, but we immediately realize on our central servers that somebody's done that, and of course we can correct that. So the MDM has been great because it allows parents freedom from having to worry about what their children are doing, and then of course children, when left to their own devices, allowed to be independent in making their decisions about how they are going to use technology.
Hmm.
They can get into the type of activity that you saw with Manga High,
Yeah.
where some of them just wanted to do more and more.
I mean, I
And
was
I'm
pretty
sure,
blown away by how well they had done and how much time had they spent on Manga High. I think it's really good to see you empowered them, and parents had the trust in the system that this is um, authorized by the school and MDM is in place, and they had the access and devices. So all the infrastructure was sort of in place to allow this to
very,
happen.
very much so. And I think that the parents had a lot to do with the success of the entire thing as well, right? Because
Absolutely.
when they see, okay, my child's on Manga High, um, they have reservations about screen time.
Hmm.
But you see, the thing about screen time, the research on screen time, there is a worry if you are using a screen too close to bedtime. So
Yeah.
certainly we would not recommend anybody at 3 a.m. on Manga High.
No.
And the other thing is that when screen time is used for repetitive, mindless usage,
Yeah.
you know, like say just surfing on YouTube videos or playing any repetitive game. Now that screen time is quite different from when you are doing screen time and using screen time for learning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we try to distinguish between the two, and we have communicated to our parents that there is a different type of screen time. And so there is good screen time, and then there is negative screen time, and they need to worry about that.
You're absolutely right. We call it like active learning and passive learning. So we define active
Right.
learning where student is interacting with the device, helping. So for example, we have a game called Graphs of the Galaxy, where the student has to fire some laser lines to destroy space debris. So they have to say, okay, this is y is equal to mx plus c. They can toy with the intercept of the line, they can play with the coefficient, and they can see what that equation looks like. So they're actively doing something. And a passive screen time is where they're just watching someone do it for them. And that's when their mind goes into a passive place and they're not really actively listening. So it's a really good distinction. I think I'm glad you picked on that one. And I think Manga High, I would say, falls
There
into
are
that.
some there are some disconcerting signs at the moment. We are doing a lot of research on screen time,
Hmm.
and we are also trying to analyze what's happening in our own school,
Hmm.
because we have a large amount of a sample that might give us data that we think can lead to some more strategic decisions.
Hmm.
But screen time is very much a huge concern
Yeah,
when it comes to.
we too are doing research on this. In fact, we are also implementing some research on this. So we're working with an organization in the US, and we're looking at what's an optimal, not in terms of time, but number of attempts a student makes on a particular activity, for instance. I think the research says when student has made 4 attempts, after that, like they're sort of reducing returns. They're better off taking a break. We call them mindfulness breaks, where they just take their attention off the thing they're doing and do something different and then come back to that task, and they suddenly have more resumed energy or revived energy and resumed enthusiasm for that task, and they do better. So we still to prove that, but that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's kind of what people in the medical profession are recommending, the 20-20 type of rule, where like you're looking at the screen for 20 minutes, then you shift your attention to an object that is a little distance away,
Yeah.
and you looking at that for a while, maybe taking a small walk and then coming back to what you were doing. So
Yeah,
maybe in Manga High, like after 20 minutes you can force them to take
we are
to.
we are going to do that. We're going to, so no, we can't force children because then they don't like your product. We can encourage them to take, say, screen breaks. We can encourage them to, like, we are trying to implement these called mindfulness breaks, and they will include things like breathing activity, where they're not doing maths, but they're seeing something really calming, and then they're doing breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, so which helps their reduce their stress level and actually improves their overall learning.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The word force does not belong in education.
No, no.
And that's the last thing that we want to do. When children are internally driven, then everything happens very differently.
Absolutely, you got to tap into the intrinsic motivation.
Right.
So I'm almost at the end of the interview. I think I want to ask you two more questions. One is going to be, what do you recommend for the parents? Like, I've been a parent myself. No, I am a parent, and I think during the lockdown, it's been quite hard on me. For instance, trying to run Manga High from home, trying to keep the morale of the staff high, trying to cook, trying to be a dad, and then trying to be a teacher. I think the respect for teachers have gone through the roof, right? So
Yeah.
it's been very tricky to do like 3 or 4 roles. And I think, as you can imagine, like, parents have suddenly become more interested, more involved, and they're leaning in into their child's education. What would you say to the parents as to what's the best role they can play at this time? Yeah, what would your recommendations be?
So there are parents and there are parents, right? So like there are some parents.
I see where you're going with this.
So uh, you know where there is a very positive environment at home,
Hmm.
and there is a trusting relationship between the child and the parents,
Hmm.
then things are going to work really well.
Hmm.
But if there are parents who are not paying enough attention, then the technology can have negative impact,
Hmm.
especially if the child is not intrinsically driven
Right.
and is making bad decisions, like what would be essentially harmful decisions. So yes, parents must play a key role at this time.
Hmm.
But by and large, I think that they are beginning to realize, just like you did, the amount of stress that teachers undergo on a day-to-day basis. And they are stepping into the shoes of those teachers in some ways, but we also have parents who are not quite looking at things in the way that they should be looking at right now. But that's an entirely different
Yeah.
arena that we need not go in. But with the type of technology tools that are already available, you see the promise of artificial intelligence, and I'm sure there's a lot of artificial intelligence at the back end of Manga High, that is now coming into play in education.
Yeah.
It's been just promise for a long time, but we were so excited when we saw what Manga High was doing, what my own reader was doing, and Agents of Discovery was doing. So these are apps. The Agents of Discovery, for instance, is actually a technology, you know, setup that gets students out and about.
Hmm.
So when we begin to have more and more of these tools, we are going to be able to come up with a very different model of education, which is more hybrid. So I do not think that we will ever get back to what we had in 2019 June.
Hmm.
Those images of schools, the way we conducted teaching and learning at that time is history. Students will not be ready for that type of learning only. They
Hmm.
have also been liberated from the idea that they are always dependent on a teacher in order to progress with their learning.
Hmm.
So they have understood that they can make progress on their own.
Hmm.
And parents have understood that learning can take place at home and in school.
Yeah.
So we are going to be able to do a very different balance between the amount of time children are in school and the amount of time that children are at home. And I think this is going to allow us to address what is perhaps the greatest problem in education, which is inequity.
Hmm.
So cost will come down. There is an opportunity to bring the cost of a great education down.
Yeah.
And I had been worrying about this for a long time. In fact, in our school, we have a mission statement that very simply says that the right to a high quality education is a birthright of every child,
Hmm.
and we will do everything in order to take it to as many children as possible. So we have 1,000 children right now, and we are worrying about the fact that many of them don't have devices. So we've been issuing, our inventory of iPads and
Hmm.
making sure that every child has a device. Now,
Right.
some of them are going to damage it, but that's the collateral damage that you have to accept. And
Hmm.
that's not a reason not to trust those children just because they come from underprivileged homes.
Hmm.
So those are challenges as well. I think that apps like Manga High and many others that are already there or will now come into the picture will bring the cost of a great education down,
Yeah.
because we're operating at scale, and the cost continues to come down as more and more people come on board.
Yeah.
There is a requirement that we are able to sift through all the apps out there and identify the ones that have what we would consider to be developmentally appropriate educational value versus some apps that are just primarily focused on entertainment and
Hmm.
finding ways to hook the children and make them addicted to that app. And I'm sure you paid attention to that as well in terms of doing it in a positive way.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are challenges, but I have been very concerned about educational inequity, and we believe that the time has come when schools must operate in such a way that they actually bring expenses down for a great education.
Wow. Wow, it's been absolutely fascinating hearing your views on education and where it's going. I think you've also answered my last question, which was going to be about the future, and I think you've already said you don't see going back to the 2019 June anymore. You think it's going to be future is going to be hybrid, it's going to be more tech enabled, and you're gonna. I think there is that ownership on teachers and people like yourself to pick the right technology, because technology for the sake of technology doesn't work, right? And not all that glitters is gold. So I think it's really good that you've trialed different systems, you pilot different systems, and I think there's a lot to be said and a lot to be learned from your experiences. So thank you for your time today, and really grateful that we had this really good Q&A.
A pleasure, Mohit. Thank you very much. And, happy to talk to you anytime.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mr. Karan. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.